Morning Brew was the big one early, and that was what validated we have a company and there's something here. They got acquired by Inside, which was great for them, and they stopped spending. That was devastating.
So you had all your eggs in one basket, over 80% of your revenue coming from one client that's now overnight gone.
We got lucky. It was a combination of luck and perseverance.
Landing an industry giant as your first client sounds like an entrepreneur's dream. But for our guest today, that dream turned into a crisis when that single client represented 80% of its total revenue, was acquired, and paused all spending overnight. Faced with a massive burn rate and employees to pay, he chose to remove the emotion from the situation and use that very experience to land his next major victory. He eventually pivoted his entire operation by purposely feeling the pain of his new target market himself. Today, he reveals his sell first, build second philosophy that allowed him to build the largest podcast marketing company in the country. Welcome to today's episode of Your Business Growth Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Shapiro, author of Your Business Growth Playbook. And my guest today is Mike Wiston. Mike, welcome to the show.
What is going on, Jeremy frickin' Shapiro? I'm super stoked to be here.
I am stoked that you are here and bringing all of that. So before we get to why you've got this incredible mixing board in the background and the great setup you do, I want to rewind the clock and talk about the time where you were getting started with decades of experience in the recruitment space and moved over to like job boards and the opportunity you saw there. So put us in the way back.
Yeah, rewinding, I spent a ton of time in the job space. So before podcasting, before newsletters, and before audience growth, I was very much in jobs where, when we say jobs, it's companies like ZipRecruiter, Monster, Career Builder, Lensa, like all those kinds of companies where a job seeker would go and look for a new career opportunity. So job boards, talent acquisition platforms, all of that. So I spent a lot of time in that space across multiple companies. I ran a large consultancy with a partner, and it was a great space. And when we started MowMedia, that was about 8 years ago, the opportunity that we identified was in jobs. They were only really monetizing, specifically job boards, were really only monetizing the job seekers in one of two ways. It was either a resume review or something very much career related, so like a service that they were selling, or they were putting the lowest bottom of the barrel affiliate offers, things like warranties for your car or clinical trials or whatever. It really has nothing to do with the job search. It's just a high payout offers that they're just playing the math game. And if we put this in front of this many people, hopefully this many convert and we'll make some money. So we saw an opportunity to present some high quality offers to the job space. The original idea was high quality non-jobs offers for the job space. That was MowMedia from day one. That was the original idea. It took about 3 months before we landed on newsletters as our kind of secret sauce. We have all these job seekers who are massively engaged in the idea of getting a new job and becoming better versions of themselves and just learning everything they can about the verticals that they're applying in. And they're just hungry for knowledge. They're hungry to be present and to be the best possible versions of themselves to get those jobs. So we thought this is a perfect opportunity to put newsletters that might make sense for this audience right in front of them, and get paid for new subscribers while they're learning, and obviously the best possible engagement we could get. So we rolled out a whole bunch of partnerships with job boards for unique placements that we put together, like unique co-reg placements and host and post placements, and a whole bunch of different ones. And the idea was just driving that audience, the relevant audience. If you're applying to a job in finance or marketing or sales, we'll show you something like Morning Brew. Become smarter than your hiring manager in 5 minutes by subscribing to Morning Brew. Something along those lines. And yeah, it worked amazingly well. And that was how it all got started.
So you had an audience of these job seekers, but the offers just didn't quite jive until you found this newsletter niche, and promoting the newsletters really became the driver to your next pivot and getting you clients like Morning Brew and the rest of them.
Yeah. So the first 3 months we went the affiliate route. We weren't really sure. We just wanted high quality offers, and we didn't use the networks. We were going after direct offers wherever we had a Good Boy Studios was like a social network for your pets, and we had like them. It was unique, but we tried that in the beginning, like thinking this is a little bit different, right? And it's not necessarily like scammy. It's kind of neat. It's kind of interesting. and we vetted everything. We had these really cool one sheets. That was our unfair advantage in the beginning. And this is, I think one of the things that helped us land, not the thing that helped us, but just everything together when you're presenting your company, especially a brand new one, how you present and the story and just everything, all you really have to go on when you're approaching new clients. And we had these one sheets for every single offer, which nobody seemed to do. And they were like beautifully designed. We had this gorgeous layout that had the offer, and it explained exactly what it was and explained what was expected. It had a blurb from us about why we think this is great, what you should be paying attention to. It was just like this beautiful thing that we could hand off to publishers and in this case the job boards, and get them excited about running this thing. And it worked really, really, really well. And then leading into that first 3 months, my partner Joe, he knew Austin over at Morning Brew through his network, and reached out. We ended up pitching, and they ended up trying it out. And the very first budget, I think, was like $20,000 to test it out, which for us at that time was like, wow, we got some real money in. And then like the next month, it was 6 figures, and we're like, we have a business.
That is such great validation for the model and what you're doing, going after the pay per acquisition model on the newsletter side. There's 2 things I want to double click into there that you touched on. One is this concept of unfair advantage, which I love. And the second we'll come back to, I have some questions for you around this one sheet. So tell me more about what you mean about unfair advantage and how you've used that then and even these days in business.
So you need an unfair advantage always, right? If you can't explain like what's your unfair advantage, like I hear this all the time from founders or hopeful founders who are talking about a business that they're trying to start, or they have this idea and they're going to go roll it out. And I'm great. So what's the unfair advantage? Like, why are people going to use you? And that's where it stops. Like, I don't know. They're going to buy this thing, and it solves this problem, right? But what do you do that's different? Like, what? It doesn't have to be a massive differentiator. Like, it just needs to be like what sets you apart. In this case, with the one sheets early on, it was as simple as presentation. Our unfair advantage was we were very present, and we had this beautiful presentation that was super transparent for the advertisers and for the publishers. We decided like the affiliate space in general was super guarded. Everything was very much a black box. The affiliate space doesn't like sharing data, doesn't like sharing anything. It's more just give me the budget. If it doesn't work, give me more budget. If it doesn't work, well, give me more budget. We'll adjust. And we hated that model. So our unfair advantage was let's be completely transparent. The one sheet was just a way of showing that transparency before you actually worked with us.
I love that. And what I'm hearing there for our listeners is you saw the standard pricing model in the industry, which everyone could take it or leave it. That was it. And you found a unique way to really price based on a result, not just an activity. And that is a hugely advantageous model for your prospects.
Yeah, that's how we started there, and we've never stopped. So every product we've ever released, we've never sold on a CPC or a CPM, which is more or less industry standard.
Yeah, and for our listeners, we're talking about the cost per click or the cost per million, usually the typical like ad impressions or the visibility, not the result, but just sort of like, hey, here's what we tried. I'm a huge fan. The deeper down you can monetize or compensate someone in your funnel, the better it is for everyone. That's how you get the A-play vendors.
Honestly, it's far more exciting as a founder, or just as the company. It's far more exciting when you're selling based on a result, as long as you're confident in your ability to deliver that result. And if you're not, why the hell are you selling it in the first place? Like if you're not confident in your ability to deliver a result, and you actually believe that, well, if they're going to buy this and it's a cost per click, there's no way it's going to back out for them, but I'll take their money. Like I hate that entire mentality. If it's not going to work, tell them it's not going to work. Work with them on other channels that might work for them. And when it makes sense, they'll definitely come to you, and they'll appreciate the hell out of it. They'll probably even refer people to you because you didn't waste their time, their money, and you look fantastic. You feel good. You go to sleep and you feel good. You're delivering something that you said you were going to deliver, and it's something that they can actually measure.
Yeah. It's like, can you imagine a carpenter showing up to the job site and getting paid for swinging the hammer, not for actually getting the work done, just for, being there and doing the motion, but not actually getting the result. Hugely well done. And big takeaway there for our listeners is figure out and articulate to your prospects what your unfair advantage is, which brings us into the other thing you mentioned, Mike, is this one sheet. So I'm a huge believer in these. I love having these, and I'd love for you to share more about what you do for one sheets and how those helped out your prospective affiliates, your clients, and so forth.
So we actually created a full, like, gorgeous one sheet for every single offer that we've ever put out. So this is not true in podcasting. We work with way too many, and it would be a massive amount of work, and it actually doesn't make any sense the way we're set up. But leading up to podcasting, every single newsletter we worked with, every single just advertiser in general that we worked with, we created a full one sheet around the offer, and we shared it with them. They could go use it themselves or repurpose it however they like. And we do stuff like that today, even in podcasting. When we create assets, we don't hold anything close to the chest. Like, here's everything. Go take it, and here's the raw file, like the AI file, the Adobe Illustrator file or the Photoshop file, and go and use it however you'd like and adjust it. And of course, teams always appreciate that, because not everyone has a creative team that can go and produce these things, but now they have a starting point. They can go use it for social or whatever. But yeah, these one sheets, nobody I went to like affiliate summit and conversion, inboxing conversion, and all that kind of stuff, like all those different conferences for affiliate space early on. And we learned and realized that it was just people talking about offers and trying to scam you into giving budget for stuff, and it's not all scamming you into giving budget, but it felt like that, and we saw the opportunity to just, again, be transparent, produce these one sheets for every single offer without fail. Honestly, like, it's not sales pitchy feedback, that we give very honest feedback about why we like something or why it's something you should run. And if we don't have good feedback about why you should run something, we don't work with that advertiser, because why would we recommend why would we have you run something that we wouldn't recommend, or we don't like the process? We signed up to every single newsletter that we've ever run ourselves. We've signed up to every offer that we've ever run ourselves, just to see what happens. We see how much they're emailing. Are they spamming our inbox consistently 3 weeks later? And we use that nice little trick in Gmail where you can put the plus. And for anyone that doesn't know, if you have a Gmail account, let's say mine is mike@MowMedia.com. I could do Mike plus Morning Brew at MowMedia.com. And I can do as many of those as I like. And it will always send, like if I sign up to a newsletter, it'll always send to that email. And if they end up selling my email, you'll get email from, to Mike plus Morning Brew at MowMedia.
I've been using that since before Gmail even existed. I've been using that so long, Mike, that I do that with postal addresses and have done so since the 90s. So you can put on a suite on a physical mailing address. So, my address and then, hashtag MowMedia. And then when that mail comes, I know it goes my MowMedia suite. It is an awesome tactic. And it's great to see not just who sold your stuff, but who had a data breach and never disclosed or talked about it, because your address for them is now somewhere else.
Right. Yeah. And it's important, especially if you're the one who is recommending a publisher run your offers. I'm handing these offers to publishers and saying, you go run this. We have, like, right now 77 different SSPs we work with, a ton of direct publishers, and I'm putting these things out there. And if it is garbage.
Let's go back to this moment you talked about. You got this big new contract on board, $20,000 spend, quickly goes to six-figure spend, and you realize you've got a business here, and not just one client, but the business starts to get some traction. So what was that earlier growth like? How are you landing additional big clients like your early ones? And what happened from there?
Well, Morning Brew was the big one early. And that was what validated we have a company and there's something here. And let's really start putting some effort into this thing, and let's become the best at this. We had a bunch of smaller newsletters that we worked with at that time, much smaller budgets, nothing too crazy. We didn't really have minimums or anything. We weren't being picky. We weren't saying, well, you need to spend at least $5,000 if you're going to work with us. We were like, you have $400, great, we'll figure it out. Like we're super excited to work with anybody. But we weren't going crazy on the sales front because we just had such a big opportunity with Morning Brew at that time, and we didn't want to screw it up. And we still didn't know what we didn't know. So that's another big piece of this. We decided to get into newsletters, and we decided that this, when it worked, that this is something that we were going to really push in on. But we were learning it as we went. We were like figuring it. Here's a theory, here's a thesis, let's go and test it. And we would very, very transparently work with Morning Brew on this stuff. Like, here's what we're going to try. We're going to run in on these publishers in this type of placement. And here's what it's going to look like. What do you think? And we were very much building out the idea live with their budget, which was just awesome. But that also meant that we weren't selling, and we had a lot of eggs in one basket. And we got really comfortable with that while we were building everything out. So when they got acquired by Inside, which was, awesome. Great for them. There was a huge win for creators and newsletters in general. I think it was like one of the first really major ones outside of, I think Snack was like a really big one as well, right? That was devastating. They got acquired and they stopped spending, which often happens when a newsletter gets acquired. They stop spending because they have like a different goal now. They're not like aggressively growing to sell, or they're not aggressively growing for the same kinds of reasons. So, or they have their own marketing companies or whatever. The new business has their own teams. So that was devastating. We lost most of our revenue overnight, and we had no idea what we were going to do.
So you had all your eggs in one basket, over 80% of your revenue coming from one client that's now overnight gone. And you had some pretty tough decisions to make. What did you decide to do in that situation to move forward?
Well, I mean, to be honest, that we got lucky. I mean, it was a combination of luck and perseverance. And we were reaching out to as many newsletters as we possibly could to try the major ones. We were looking at who are all the biggest, the Skim and Inside Hook and Newsy and The Hustle, and just so many of them. And we just got really lucky that a month later we landed The Hustle at a similar type of a deal. And just we were able to work with them. And unlike Morning Brew, we started actually building out the effort from that point forward. That was really, really important. Just stopping at nothing to hit every single person that we could and have as many conversations as possible until we made up that revenue somehow, and then change our behavior so the same thing doesn't happen.
Yeah, so I want to hear more about that behavior change to prevent that from happening again. What did you do based on what you learned to make sure you weren't edging towards 80% with another big client?
Well, so that's a weird thing, right? So especially early on in the business, you don't want all your eggs in one basket. But like in our instance, Morning Brew came on and we had all this money coming in every month from Morning Brew, and it was amazing. And we didn't really have that many other clients that were at any real size. So naturally, they're going to be the most of the revenue. And, the decision can be, we need to diversify. We need more. We need to make them less of our revenue. But that requires sales, and it requires sales cycles, and it requires, we were still at that time learning our product. So we didn't really know what we were going to be selling. We didn't want to sell exactly the same thing in the same placements. We didn't want to take away from what we were doing on Morning Brew. We were still building out the publisher network, had all the contacts, but we didn't have the placements on all the different sites yet. So, we were still building it all out. So we couldn't really do anything about it. When we got to the Hustle, kind of had all of this running for a bit, we recognized that the effort needed to, on sales, it really needed to just be constant. Like we had to always be filling the funnel. We ended up hiring, that's when we started bringing on a sales team. At that time, originally it was just 3 of us. And then we started hiring salespeople to go out and actually sell constantly. We became a sales first organization at that time. And that made a huge difference. And today, even in podcasting or anything, we're very much a sales first organization. We're always like filling our calendars with conversations. And if you're not having conversations, you're just one bad situation away from COVID happening or something to losing it all.
So what I'm hearing there is always be filling the funnel, be a sales first organization, because it doesn't matter how great your product is. If people don't know about it, they don't have the opportunity to buy it, you don't have a business. And that's all well and good. And there are outside factors beyond our control that can shift the tides in business. And you've touched on a few of those, but tell us what happened as iOS started making some of the changes they made and what that did for the newsletter business.
Yeah, so newsletters, the time that we were running at massive scale in newsletters and we were working with just about everybody, And we were very much a newsletter company. That was us. We were a newsletter growth company. We were the largest newsletter growth company in the space. Blah, 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 blah. We are super bullish on this is going to be the exit one day, right? This is, we're going to get acquired by somebody because they wanted all this newsletter growth and like our unfair advantage with our publisher network and jobs specifically at that time. And we were really stuck on jobs as our differentiator at that time. And then there was a huge change to iOS. But just rewinding, the KPI for all the newsletters at that time was open rates. That's all they cared about. They just wanted to see their open rates consistent with what they were getting organically, maybe fluctuating a little bit on the lower side from organic, just because paid will always come in lower than organic. But as long as it was a function of organic and it matched expectations, they were super happy. But it was all just about open rate. That's all that mattered. And then the iOS update came. And Apple Mail, Apple devices just started opening every single email, and it was tracking in the ESPs as opens. So open rates were just completely bonked, and nobody knew what to do, and everybody stopped spending. While they figured out, what the new normal is. They needed growth, but they didn't know what was working because the open rates weren't working. And they didn't have a model at that time to solve for it. The argument could be just get rid of all your iOS, all the data from iOS, and just look at your Android and PC. But nobody wants to do that. And it's like half your traffic is gone. Yeah, that was pretty devastating. And we realized that we got lucky again, but we realized we needed to kind of make a change. We either needed to evolve the newsletter business, and there was no new normal. Like right now, it's clicks. Clicks is what people really care about in newsletters. So when you're buying growth, or even if you're just getting organic growth, what you really care about as a newsletter operator right now are the clicks, because that's what's, you can actually measure as far as engagement is concerned. That wasn't a North Star for anyone at that time. It wasn't like, oh, well, open rates don't work. Well, we'll optimize against clicks. That just wasn't a thing. And if advertisers aren't buying that metric, you can't sell that metric, so there was nothing to sell.
I want to touch on that a little bit, because this idea of there being nothing to sell, we can get to that destination a few different ways, right? Sometimes it's a matter of there just not being a product and you're still trying to figure it out. Other times these tides change and your market goes away. The messaging no longer works. The market is gone. Any of these factors. And this iOS update was a big change for you guys. And you touched on this like sell first, build second approach, which really comes from being curious, asking questions and all. And I want to hear more about your philosophy around this and how you shifted towards that sell first, build second approach.
Every product we've ever built, we've sold before we built it. So what that means is Joe Chase and I are talking, and we have an idea, and we start going down that road, and it seems like something that could really work. And we have the skeleton for this thing all mapped out. We know kind of what it looks like, the shape of it more or less. And then I start, Chase and I will just go out, and Chase is our chief revenue officer. Chase and I will just go out and start having conversations with all of our existing clients, with people that we know that this would be a fit for, that we have relationships with, not necessarily like, reaching out to net new people or, doing cold outreach and, having conversations. It's more, we have large networks at this stage, from our careers. And if the idea fits, if it's a podcast or a newsletter or whatever it is, a product for those things, we know plenty of people that have these, and we go out and sell it as if it exists. We don't lie. We don't say like, hey, we have this thing, it's ready to go, but we go out and sell it, the idea of it, and have conversations about this product that we're rolling out, or that we're just rolled out, or that it's in beta, or whatever it is. While it's still just an idea, we're looking for the reaction. These are people that we know. They might be existing clients, they might be friends, whatever, but we're looking for that reaction. We're looking for like, are they latching onto this? Are they asking questions? Are they excited about it? Or is it just going right over their head? And when I have more conversations, is it going over their head? And if that's the case, obviously maybe we don't have something. Maybe we need to go back and figure it all out. But if everyone's excited about it, great. Then we try to actually sell it. Like, great. So here's what we're thinking. Here's where we're going to go with it. And we have an idea of what this thing will cost. That's another thing. You start playing with cost and pricing with those conversations. They're massively valuable. You just get the reactions again. Are we way outside what you're willing to pay for this? Or because we don't necessarily know, especially when you're buying media, and it's new, you don't necessarily know how much it's going to cost you until you start actually running something. And when you're selling based on performance, that really matters. It's a good way to come up, in the red if you overpromise. So
the newsletters were out. You and Joe had a sketch of an idea that you started going around and pre-selling and pitching and getting some interest in. What was this new thing you were building?
Podcasting, woo! So Morning Brew and The Hustle, they have My First Million and Business Casual, and around the same time, they had both mentioned in some type of fashion that, hey, if you could do for us what you're doing in podcasts, what you're doing in our newsletters for podcasting, we'd be really interested in buying it. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for us to go out and figure this out. And the first podcast I ever listened to in my life was a month before we launched MoPod. Now I love podcasting. I have my own podcast. We put a ton of effort into that just to kind of go through the pain of what it's like to be a podcaster. And I think this is true for when you're a founder. I believe you should. This is a quality that I think every founder should have. You should want to understand how every aspect of the business works, and you should understand your clients completely. And in my case, I didn't come from podcasting. I didn't really know much about podcasting at that time, but I wanted to. And if I'm going to be offering a growth product in podcasting, I needed to understand what do podcasters go through? What's the pain of growing your podcast organically? What are the things that you run into, and bang your head against the wall for? So we started our own podcast. We built a strategy around how we would get this organic growth for the podcast out of the gate with community and stuff like that. And we really just kind of deep dove and just jumped right in the lake to figure it all out. So
what was the podcast you launched, and what was the plan, and what were the pain points you found along the way that you felt your prospects were also experiencing?
So we launched Friday Night Karaoke. It's negativity-free, ad-free, just karaoke. We didn't start with the podcast. We started with a community on Facebook, and it was COVID, which was perfect freaking timing for all this. And that's something we didn't mention back when I mentioned the iOS update. But yeah, it was perfect timing for something like this. We had all these people who were at home; they couldn't go anywhere, and we created this Facebook group called Friday Night Karaoke, where we started posting ourselves singing songs, just videos of ourselves singing songs. We made it very clear, again, it was negativity free. It was ad free. We're not going to make any money from this. We're not going to offer you anything or put advertisements or anything. It's just about a love of music. And that little nugget kind of carried it and helped the thing grow. More people started joining, and they started posting their videos and sharing with friends. And now we have 51,000 members who are posting hundreds of songs of themselves singing every single day. And we use that much earlier, obviously, but we used that community to launch the podcast. Like, hey, now we're taking 10 of your songs that you're posting in here every week. We're going to take 7 to 10 of them, and we're going to drink a bottle of bourbon and talk about how awesome they are. And that's our podcast. And again, negativity free and ad free. So we're not making money on you. We just want you to be heard. And it's worked amazingly well as a launch pad.
There's a cool lesson I like there, that you gathered your ideal audience together first in this community. And then with your market all in one place, you were able to launch something in the form, in this case, of the podcast. And that is such a great strategy any business can use, of figuring out where your ideal customers are, and if there isn't a spot, creating that place for them. And that can help you to validate if your messaging is on point, if you're attracting the right crowd, if it is the right crowd, and so forth. And you guys did that. Are you enjoying this episode? Make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. That'll help you get more episodes automatically as soon as they come out. So hit that subscribe button right now. And if you have a minute, leave a quick rating and review. That helps support the show.
I also want to stress that if you do build a community around your podcast or newsletter or whatever it is, you build a place for everyone to gather and talk, and it's like a safe place for them to talk about this thing that they all have in common. Don't sell to them in that community. Just don't take sales out of it. The community exists, it's for the community, and you should approach it just as any other community member, right? You should be there talking with them, helping them, just being part of it. You'll actually develop friendships. You'll develop, respect from a lot of the space, all the people in there. And that doesn't mean that, oh, great, now I got their respect and I got their attention. Now I can go sell them something. Don't do that. Like you go sell, they'll know what you do. It's cool. Use the community separately.
Nice. And well said. So not every product is brilliant. I think we all have harebrained ideas that don't turn into much. And you had a product idea that you were pitching to iHeart. Tell us about that first major project attempt and what happened there.
That was our intro to podcasting. That was the very first idea for podcasting was, we don't know anything about this space. Again, listen to the first podcast, go figure out how to make a podcast, but we need a product. What's the product going to be? Like, we had a North Star, and that was at that time downloads. That was the metric that we learned at that time that mattered to anybody. And we, at that time, what's a download? Like what was that? What does that mean? Like 60 seconds from unique IP address within 24 hours. Great, cool. That's the definition. But is that enough? Like what needs to happen here for, what's the KPI ultimately for a podcast to say, yes, this is great. We'll keep buying and we need to incorporate this into our growth strategy. So, with iHeart, I had worked with them on prior companies, in jobs specifically, with their TA team. And, I know a bunch of people there, and, I used that and my connections there as a starting point. And I went to New York and met with their teams multiple times and kind of pitched this idea of, hey, you have this huge network of, and you have all these listeners and you have the iHeart player. And, I didn't at that time know, you have iHeart, you have Apple, you have Spotify, and you have all these other players. And in my mind, iHeart was such a big company that must matter. This must be where people focus. And so we went to them and said, look, we'll get you a whole bunch of new listeners. We'll give your listeners new things to listen to and get you more listen time. And we'll drive new listeners in to iHeart. And here's how we want to put it all together. And we made this really cool deal as a start before we had anything. This was our very first deal that we made in podcasting, was this cool partnership where we had this like host and post type placement on our job boards where it kind of popped up and it asked, had all the information about the show. Really nice graphic and all that kind of stuff. And we asked for your email in the actual pop-up. And when you typed your email in, we checked, we had a ping to iHeart server. Does this user exist or not on iHeart? If they do exist, then we showed them the next screen. We showed them a player where they were able to actually play the episode that we were advertising. If not, we asked for age, gender, and zip, and then we had a little confirmation. We're going to sign you up to iHeart. Is that cool? They click it, and now they're signed up to iHeart. And then we put the player up there, and it was awesome. The problem was it was way too expensive to run with publishers. So you have this placement that pops up and takes a lot of their users' time. It collects data, and it just to run that would cost way more than anyone would be willing to pay for a download. It just made no sense. It doesn't matter how sticky, it doesn't matter how good it was. No one's willing to pay what I had to pay out. And there was just no way to solve that. Like everything we did didn't work. So total failure of a product. Thank you, iHeart, for working with us on that. Sorry, it didn't work out.
Certainly a cool idea.
Yeah, the idea made sense, and it was clean, and it was a great idea, but it just didn't work. And I think it's really important, again, as a founder, when you're making decisions, it's really important to take emotion out of the equation. You put all this time, you put your team on it, you have all this hope for this new thing. You need something new to work because, newsletters was out, at least at that time, and changing. And, we didn't have an answer there, but we had an opportunity, and we saw the opportunity in podcasting. So we needed to make a decision, and we could either keep banging on this thing that's not going to work. And, I recognized, and so did Joe and so did Chase, that this thing's not going to work, no matter what we do. Or we can just burn it to the ground, learn what we can learn, and start over. And that's what we did.
There's a concept around, quote, failure. And, that is if you can fail fast, you can learn your lesson and recover fast and then get on to that next thing. But sometimes humans, we have a tendency to drag that out and not quit the thing we should quit or not find the lesson in it. And the whole process ends up taking so much longer than it needs to. We talk about lead magnets and how you get your opt-ins and start to build your list and all. And you've taken that to heart and done something I think really cool with completely free tools with no upsells, just pure lead gen stuff. Where was your inspiration to start building out the list with this good top of funnel stuff that was totally free?
Sure. So this was 2 years ago. We've done stuff like this forever. Even back when I was working in jobs, we've done stuff like this, but very more relevant and more recent. About 2 years ago, Chartable, which was the tool in the space that basically everyone used when they needed to go view their historic chart ranking on Apple or Spotify. They would go to chartable.com, and Chartable was bought by Spotify a bunch of years back, and part of Megaphone and all that jazz. But it was the go-to. If you go to Apple right now and you go look at the charts, it only tells you your current chart ranking. That's it. In the top 200 in any category in whatever region, and that's what they show you as of like now. The last 4 hours or so. And Chartable sunset 2 years ago. They had a big announcement that Spotify was shutting it down. It was only available inside of Megaphone to Megaphone users, and they were sunsetting the product. And it was kind of devastating because that is where everyone went to get their historic chart ranking. You couldn't see what happened in the past. You couldn't compare other podcasts. You couldn't see like trends. You couldn't do any of that anymore without Chartable. And there were a couple other services that were trying to do this, and they were okay. But Chartable was the go-to. When they sunset, the day that they sunset, we launched charts.mopod.com. And our goal was, let's make Chartable and make it better and make it free. And we started indexing from that day. I think it was like October 26th of 2 years ago, or 2.5 years, or whatever it was. We started indexing from that day. And we launched charts.mopod. It was a fantastic kind of entry into the space on that side of things, on the data side, because as a free tool that did everything that Chartable did. Chartable charged like $14 a month or something, and this was completely free. And a couple other tools came out around the same time. They saw the same opportunity, but they all charged. They all said, well, we're going to be $8 or $12 or whatever it is, or buy into our service and you get the charge for free, right? But like it was always like a carrot, at the end of that stick that you had to go chase after in order to get to your charts. And we were like, let's just give the entire thing for free. Let's not put any calls to action. No pop-ups. If you joined it 4 times and looked at your thing 4 times, say, hey, would you like to grow your show? Like, we have none of that. Let's just, similar to the Facebook group, let's make it a truly free experience and just put the Mopod brand in front of your face all the time whenever you go there, and make it, something that you can't live without in podcasting. And so we launched it, and we got an amazing reception for it. Pod News actually indexes are in every issue of Pod News. You'll see powered by Mopod charts in the charts section, where they call out, here's the top, in Apple, top in Spotify, or whatever, biggest mover, some cool little stats there. So you'll see that in Pod News, and that was a really cool partnership with James. But yeah, so that's that part of the tool. And then more recently, we launched as an add-on to that. And we saw companies like Pod SEO and a whole bunch like that are looking at your RSS feed and looking at what you're posting on Apple and Spotify, and the titles and the descriptions and who the sponsors, et cetera, are, and the various episodes, both for your own show or for competitive analysis. And, they're all charging. And we looked at, well, what's this actually going to cost us to go run this data and go put this all together in a similar way? And we looked at the cost and we said, well, this is acceptable. Like if we were going to be spending marketing, we sponsor a lot of events, and we constantly do marketing like that. So we do have a good marketing budget. And when we look at this, and we're like, well, this is much smaller than we would be spending on monthly. When you kind of break it down, this is much more reasonable than a lot of the other marketing we might do, and it provides a great service to the space. So we launched analytics and analysis within the charts tool. So now there's like a little brain icon. You click it, and it does what like companies like Pod SEO does. But again, completely free with no calls to action.
So I think it's interesting here that there are entire businesses that are built around monetizing a niche tool. And you just went and said, yeah, we'll just eat the costs to build it and run it and maintain it and all those things purely for the visibility, for attracting your ideal client, for the citations and everything else that comes with that. That all has to lead somewhere, and you chose not to go with the direct upsell. So what is it you're doing with the audience that you have built that use the tools to turn that into the actual business side of things?
Well, I mean, again, it's just putting those free tools. It's just putting MoPod's brand in front of your face. When you look at the podcast space in general, we're not. It's B2B. It's not B2C. We're not like outreaching, moms at home with kids. Like that's not the goal. And it doesn't. We're not just. It's not broad reach like that. We're looking at one, podcasters. Just people with podcast networks, agencies, podcasts. Two, podcasts that have a reason to grow. Or they have advertisers or sponsors. We're not trying to reach every podcaster because paid growth, us or any paid growth, doesn't make sense for most podcasters unless there's a clear reason to grow. Unless there's no difference. I've said this a million times in different podcasts, but there's no difference between 10 downloads or 100 downloads or 100,000 downloads per episode if there's no meaningful path towards something. Something for your stakeholders or your advertisers, or even like your just personal satisfaction, whatever it is. You have to have a reason to hit those numbers, and hopefully when you're hitting it, it's turning into something like you're joining a network or you're making more money or whatever, and then you can invest that back into growth. Then it makes sense. But growth for the sake of growth doesn't really make any sense to me. So for the most part, our market isn't the 600,000 podcasts out there right now that are active. That's not it. It's 3,000 podcasts realistically. So we don't need to be constantly like on these free tools shoving in your face, like, go buy this, go buy this, go buy this. We're already having those conversations with all these companies that could, or, companies, networks, independent podcasters. We're already having the conversations with everyone. Again, we're a sales first organization. So my team is out there and we're talking to everybody. So the goal with those tools is not discover us and go buy something. It's, discover us if you don't know who we are. If you do know who we are, keep us top of mind. This is who we are. We're the company that gives you, all the tools you need for free. And when you're ready for growth, think of us next.
Nice. So not just a co-branding situation, but just a straight up self-branding. And bring that awareness to the audience, which is fantastic. All right. So from a podcast marketing standpoint, you guys shifted from newsletters to investing heavily on the sales side, on the podcast marketing. It's now over 90% of the revenue for the company. What has that shift been like for you guys as a company, finding this new market, new product, new revenue, and all the rest of that?
It's similar to what you said before about what we were both talking about all the eggs in one basket with back when we had Morning Brew, for instance, everything was there. Similar. We have a lot of the businesses podcasting. We love podcasting, and podcasting is the soul of our company right now. Newsletters is still exciting. With Beehive, great job, Tyler, building Beehive and doing all that. But I believe that when all the hype around Beehive and just everything that they've generated there has really done a lot for the newsletter space. On and off of Beehive. And I feel like there's a resurgence there, and we are still very well positioned to take to provide growth in that market. So that's something that we're looking at. How can we do things a little bit differently? And we have some cool ideas there. We don't want to be 90% podcasting, we want to be more diversified than that. But we do have 7 products in podcasting. So it's we're quite diversified within podcasting.
And I think part of that has led you to this high brand awareness. No one really knows the number 2, number 3s, and all the rest of that. Everyone remembers number 1. And you guys are, my understanding, is the largest podcast marketing firm in the US, Canada, and the UK. That's a big deal.
Yeah, the largest dedicated podcast marketing company. If you, podcast marketing could be running ads on other podcasts, and companies like Ad Results, they'll eat our lunch all day long as far as revenue is concerned. But dedicated podcast marketing, yes, we're the largest in the US, Canada, and the UK.
That doesn't come without its own lessons along the way. And one of the things I've seen you do really well is you've stayed fluid, right? You realize when something's not working, you course correct and adjust. And yet founders also always hear about grit and perseverance and just push through, push through, push through. How do you as a business owner like balance this need to stay fluid with dangers that come up with getting attached and fully dedicated and no matter what, charging forward in a certain direction?
I think no matter what and charging forward in a certain direction is completely irresponsible. So, I mean, I don't agree with that at all. I mean, maybe that's what everyone's pushing right now, or maybe that's the advice, but I don't believe in that at all. Yes, go ahead, push forward if you believe in your idea. If you are being honest with yourself, you've removed emotions from the entire decision-making process, and you logically are looking at this from all angles as the founder or CEO or just the driver of this product. And you know from all the data that you have that this should work, and there's no good reason why it shouldn't. Who cares? You have competitors who are doing it. Whatever. I have an unfair advantage. Let's go push that. The unfair advantage isn't good enough. Great. Let's come up with a new one. But like, yeah, in those cases, push forward. There's no major blocker. But again, when you let emotion get a hold of you as a founder, or when you're leading a product, it's really easy to get caught up in that. This has to work. This has to work. No matter what, it has to work. Please make it work. It's not logical in any way, shape, or form. And that's when bad decisions are made. So I feel like there's no need for balance there. I think you need to take a big step back if you are moving forward blindly in hopes that it will work. You're at the casino, man. Step away.
So just real briefly, have you and Joe found there have been times that you were getting emotional in a decision-making process and had to like catch yourself and shift over to logic?
Yeah, we right before COVID, before the newsletters dropped out, right at kind of our heyday when the hustle was pushing in a lot, and we had a lot from all the other major newsletters, and this was a really good newsletter business, and we had a ton of money coming in. We launched a sister product. We thought, we're working on all of these newsletters and we're growing them all. We should have our own, and we can grow that, and we should have our own brand like that. And then imagine we have all this audience, and we can be putting the newsletters that we're working with in our own owned audience instead of working with external media partners. Let's go build our own audience network. So we built a brand called /Shout. It was a gaming brand, and it was awesome. It was freaking awesome. We had a team of 12 people that we hired, a director, writers, graphics, all that kind of stuff. We had streams, we had news. We were the Morning Brew for gaming. So it was your 5-minute competitive esports update. That was a cool idea, and we actually almost launched /Con. We had this whole airplane hangar in Irvine that we were about to rent out. We had the whole thing all planned. We're ready to go, and then COVID hit. So luckily we got out of it before we invested. But yeah, we got very emotionally involved in that business. We never made a penny on that. Not we had cool sponsors with Main Gear and Corsair and a bunch of really cool Sennheiser. There were really cool sponsors that gave us stuff to give away, and but we never made a penny on that business. We spent a ton of money, and we never pulled the plug because we wanted it to work. We were like, we can do this, we can do it. We have this whole team. We don't want to fire people. We said we're gonna do it, and we let it run way too long, and we lost a lot of money on it. It's the thing that I didn't know what I didn't know at that time. If I was to launch something like that again, it would be much different and much more successful at this time, because I learned a lot since then, but I have no desire to do that. But it's that product that I'm a gamer, and I love the product. I love that whole space. I was so excited to have something in it. That's where the emotion came into play. And we just held on to it way, way, way too long. We, rather than building up a huge nut for when COVID hit, we spent our whole nut on an idea.
We all have those stories and lessons learned, but that is a good one. All right. So quick question for you on, we talk lessons learned. You've mentioned KPIs a few times. I'm a huge believer in KPIs, so key performance indicators, so long as they inform and drive a decision and aren't just vanity metrics. But what are some of the specific metrics or KPIs that you and your team track today across these 8 different products to ensure that you're not hitting that next plateau?
What we learned is there's the KPI that a client gives you, and there's the KPI that they are really tracking. So, and there's a lot of that everywhere, right? They have this like KPI for that they publicly state that this is what we need to happen and this is what it needs to look like. But really, they want a chart, or they want to, in podcasting, they want a chart, or they want to hit a certain download number over a certain period of time, and that's like the hidden KPI. That they don't necessarily talk about it, but that's what they really want. You still have to hit the main KPI, but if you're not hitting the hidden KPI, you're not going to get a renewal. And they're when they're comparing you versus anybody else, like understanding the hidden KPIs, I think is really important, because that's again an unfair advantage. And this just goes back to, by the way, understanding the space. So if you're on the outside and you're just creating stuff that kind of knee-jerk reaction, like, oh well, people are buying this, I'm going to go make it, right? Cool, but you don't understand it. You don't understand why they're buying it. You don't understand when they buy it, the decisions that they're making based on the results, right? And if you don't understand that stuff completely, you're way behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, well said. And one thing I like that you touched on there is this idea of you may have your KPIs, but your clients are paying you to hit their KPIs, even the ones they may not know or verbalize. And part of our job is to make sure our clients win and our customers are better off because of us. And so understanding that and hitting that is huge.
I just want to say, like, I think something that is lost today in a lot of businesses is the idea that everyone can win. And, it's very often, I feel like lately it's been, at least in my observation, it's been, an either or situation. Like, I'm going to get this, and I'm going to win. They're not going to be happy. They're going to leave, and I'm going to go find somebody else, but I'm always going to win. It's me, I'm going to win. But if you make it, we're going to win, and you make that your focus, we are going to win, you will work together forever. There's no reason for them to ever leave if they're winning and you're not losing. I think there's not enough stress on that. And I think as vendors or as service providers, we need to really pay attention to that. To your point, we need to understand what they need and what they, whether they verbalize it or not. And we can all win.
Yeah, we can all win. So before we wrap, a few quick rapid fire questions for you. One, I love talking lead sources. If you had to start all over again from scratch, what one lead source would you go all in on?
So this is complicated because it depends on the vertical that you're launching or like what kind of company you're launching. But if I was launching a SaaS product for B2B or any kind of B2B product or service or whatever, Crunchbase is my unfair advantage. It's historically been amazing. Nobody, I feel like, uses it the way they should. Crunchbase is amazing because you can go and find people in the companies in the US who have raised at least $3 million on a pre-seed or seed A or series A or series B, in the last 6 months or, last year. And those people, you go reach out to their C-suite. They have an obligation to their investors to grow. They have to. They have money from their investors and they have to grow. No matter what, they have to show positive results. And if you can show them that by working with us, we'll get you to those positive results, you're solving their problem. Like it's such a good lead source and nobody uses it. Every conversation I've ever had, nobody's been like, oh yeah, I do that. And it seems like basic, but it's like such a brilliant, easy, low-hanging fruit place to go get leads.
Brilliant. I love that one. And yes, that is the first time I've heard that. So that is a great source. All right, books. Aside from, of course, your business growth playbook, what are some of your top favorite business books?
Wait, hold on. I don't think are there other books than your business growth playbook for, I don't, I'm pretty sure that's the only one I've ever read, I read it every night to my son and my daughter.
Lucky kids.
No, so unpopular opinion. I find that books ruin good movies. So I am probably the only founder that doesn't read. So I read articles, I read thoughts and comments, and I read. I don't typically read a book. It's not really. I have massive ADD, and I have a lot of trouble focusing when I read a book.
Then you are going to love my movie. It's nothing like the book.
Fantastic! Michael Bay produces.
White doves flying. All right. So mentors wise, who would you say was one of your unlikeliest mentors?
I've had two unlikely mentors, and I believe that everyone needs a mentor. It doesn't have to be an official, like you don't need to go out and find like, yourmentor.com and go like get connected and matched with a mentor. Like, I think that's not the way to go about it, right? Like, it has to be an organic thing and it just kind of happens. And, you find somebody, and when I say you find it, you come across somebody in your journey that you, one, connect really well with, and two, that you respect and look up to, want to be more like in some way. Some aspects of what they're doing is something that you wish for yourself. And, it's not, you want to kind of take over their life, the way they are, their personality, but you want to learn from them as much as possible. And I've had two. Early in my career, I worked at a company called All County Jobs, and I ran I ran the whole thing. And I didn't come from the job space. It was my entry into jobs. And the owner is this guy named David Lewis out of Stamford, Connecticut. And he owned a company called Operations Inc. And he had bought All County Jobs. And he brought me on to run the whole thing. I had no business doing it, and he let me do it anyway. And I learned a lot about, he had the largest HR outsourcing company in Connecticut. And I thought that, it was really cool seeing that whole side of the business and growing this. And I learned so much from him. And I wouldn't be here without him, without kind of learning. And he was like really patient with me on everything. He invested a lot in me. And believed in me a lot. So that was huge, and I'll appreciate him forever. And this other guy, Ethan Bloomfield, he was early ZipRecruiter. I think it was like employee number 1. He built their sales team up, and he bought my company, a company called MemberView, and he bought that company, and we ended up working together at this major consultancy in jobs called Vital Few. And I just learned a bloody ton about marketing and about sales. He's probably one of the best salespeople I've ever met, because he sells without selling, and he's the shut the hell up and listen guy, and just ask the right questions. And just to this day, he's my son's godfather. It just kind of evolved, and he's been great. He drives me absolutely nuts, and sometimes I wonder, but without him and without David in my life, there was no way that I would be in the place I'm at. I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't be successful. I just wouldn't be here.
So to recap for our listeners, you moved from an 80% revenue collapse to a strategic pivot that used your early success as a calling card, eventually mastering this sell first, build second model to become a dominant force in podcast marketing.
That sounds about right.
Love it. And Mike, for our listeners who want to learn more about you, where should they go right now?
I mean, I guess I don't have like a big social following, or, I don't do a lot on social, but you can find me on LinkedIn. Just type in Mike Wiston in LinkedIn. You'll find me. Sobi Mike, SOBIMIKE on Instagram. I don't really post, but you can find me there. But yeah, please go check out MowPod, MOWPOD.com, and, the free charts tool.
Love it. And that's MowPod, MOWPOD.com. And it is a tool I love and use, and really appreciate what you've built for the community. And I also really appreciate all the lessons and wonderful parts of your journey that you shared with us, and for taking the time to chat about all that. It's been so good hearing the valuable lessons that are unique to your story that we don't get to hear as much, and we're better for it. So thank you, Mike.
No, thank you, Jeremy. And just for all the other potential guests of podcasts, all you other founders who are listening to this, Jeremy puts on one of the best free podcast processes that I've ever come across. So look to this guy if you want to share your story.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike.
All right. Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening. Quick reminder, hit that subscribe button right now so you can get more episodes when they come out automatically. And remember to leave that rating and review right now.